welcome back to my studio. This is Emma, giving you a very warm welcome on this beautiful spring day. Well, it's spring, it's beautiful, it's always beautiful, it doesn't matter what the weather's doing here, it's always lovely. I'm very grateful to live where I live. I look out on the fells and it's just beautiful. Whether there's a mist rolling down or the clouds are low. Currently I'm looking out of the window, my husband's cut all his willow and that's all stacked up outside my window. Which is very beautiful. Anyway, so today I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit about how you get going when you don't know what you want to do and how you overcome the sort of fear that stops us all from being creative. I think there's a lot of fear in creativity. I think, you know, when you're going to make your dinner, when you're going to make food, it seems as though that's an easy thing to do, but if you say to somebody, go and make some art, they'll go, oh no, I can't draw, I can't do that. And I feel very strongly that it's time to let go of some of that and find ways that gently ease us into being creative, because I think creativity is a very big form of self-care. If you watch children, I used to love watching the kids around my kitchen table over the years, back in the day when I had a small child. And her friends would come round and they all did what we call cutting and sticking, and they used to make the most wonderful things. I'd just give them a pile of things to work with, you know, bits of paper, glitter, glue, bits of fabric, I don't know, all kinds of things, and they would just have a whale of a time, and they weren't sitting there going, oh God, what's for tea, and oh, I shouldn't be doing this, and what if it goes wrong, you know. And I just feel really strongly that that's something for us all to be perhaps easing into and finding a way so that we can just have some fun and just make stuff. And you know, it's amazing what comes out when you just get going. So I feel perhaps that's today's message, is just get going, you know, even if you think you shouldn't, especially if you think you shouldn't. And do it first, you know, do a little bit of creativity before your day starts. I find drawing at breakfast time has been a real sort of bonus to me. So this was a little drawing. This is my little sketchbook, one of my little sketchbooks. This is actually from last year. It's got a lot of black and white pictures in that I was doing last year, but it's also got some colour pictures in that I was doing. It's got pictures of my kitchen and what's around in my kitchen. I just draw what's around me. I don't do anything fancy. See, there's a drawing of my feet. That I was sitting on the sofa with my feet up on a hot day. So today, I'm feeling like it's spring and it's time to celebrate that, and I'm feeling like I really want to get some colour going. So I did this little quick sketch of some daffodils and some little shapes. I don't know if you can see that so well, but I'll try and give you a close-up of it. What I really want to capture is, I'm not so interested in them being like really daffodil shaped. I'm just feeling about the colours and the shapes and the spikes of the leaves and how they sit in the grass. So I'm going to play with that today, and one of the ways I get going is by feeling my way into the colours. I find going and getting, as you know, anybody who's watched this for a little while knows that I just go and get a box of fabric out, and I find that really, it just kick-starts me, it gets me out of the thinking and into the doing, I suppose. So this is my box of yellows that I've got out. I don't have a lot of yellow. Now this is like my guilty secret is I never used to sew yellow. I hated yellow. I didn't want yellow in my life. And you can see, like behind me, can you see any yellow? Not a lot. A couple of years ago I kind of challenged myself, so I bought some yellow fabrics, and I did end up actually using them on a project I did with butterflies, and it was beautiful. I just felt the yellow. So this is my little box of yellow. I've only got one. Maybe I'll get more as time goes on, but it's got some cracking yellows in it. It's got some organza, I've got some yellow satin dress fabric, I've got some pretty, this is yellow lace. I don't know if you can see that very well. This is a bit of a strange colour. This was a scarf, I think, that my daughter bought at, I think it was Knitting and Stitching Show one year, and it's gorgeous colours, and that may well blend in, I don't know, or I may just keep to these very bright yellows. I think there's some, what my mother would call slimy fabric in here. There's some shirt fabric somewhere in the bottom of here. Oh, here we go. What my mother would call slimy fabric. It's just a blouse. It's just been a blouse, and I've cut it up, and it's quite see-through. But if I layer it up, or if I use that, it's the perfect thing for using with my embellishing machine. So that's my yellows, and I'll show you my greens as well. Just put that out of the way. And the other thing I do is I keep all my threads, like my fabrics. I learned to do this many years ago, is I keep all my threads in a colour box. So that's my yellows and that's my greens, and I find again that's really helpful to go to. And then what I can do is I'll go through and I'll maybe pick 2 or 3 of those out, and I will put them, you know, perhaps I'll get a little bowl like this, and this can become like my project bowl, and I put my project threads in. It's not absolute, you know, I could be adding in some orangey stuff into the mix, you know, it's not an absolute, but I suppose it's like a painter choosing colours that they're going to paint the picture with. This is me choosing my colours, my paints, but I paint with fabric and I paint with thread. So I think the next thing to do is to cut out some fabrics, and then I'll be thinking about whether I'm going to embellish them as a background or whether I'm going to just free machine embroider them. So the main thing is I'm getting started. So I hope you'll enjoy watching the process with me as I try and find my way into making something daffodilly. Okay, so I have cut myself a piece of what I use quite regularly, which is cotton curtain interlining. This is a really nice soft fabric. If you've got some nice quilting wadding, that would do. I just kind of want to use it to create a softish surface, and especially if I'm going to just embellish into it, that will help create a thicker surface for me to stitch into. And I may at some point decide to add in a stabilizer behind, but just for now I'm going to be cutting out some fabrics, and what I want to do is make them long and thin-ish, she says, and I'm going to make them go this way. Usually if I'm doing like a landscape or something, I would have them going horizontally, but because I'm doing sort of something daffodil-ish, I kind of want to feel as though the background is like the grass, as though it's just an extension of the grass. And I think the way to do this is just to cut pieces of fabric and put them on lengthwise. I've got this is lovely. Isn't that nice? That gives straight away the sort of feeling that I'm looking for, which is long and thin and tall. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just keep mixing these up. I don't want any particular green. I want a nice feeling of mixture. There we go, like that. And maybe a bit of this. Again, this has got a nice, this is a crinkly sort of, what do you call it, seersucker or cheesecloth or something. So I feel as though that would be quite nice as well. Just add that into the mix. So you can see it's starting to build up the layers. Now, because I think I'm going to embellish this one, I'm not too concerned about the edges. What I do need to bear in mind is how much these might shrink when they get embellished. So I'll have some spare pieces on hand to add into the mix. I've cut a little bit of this, but I'm just not so sure that that's the colour. I think that's too strong for the background. I'm going to use that, I think, for a stalk, possibly. I've also got a bit of this which I might add into the mix, but again I'm not quite sure yet. I think what I'm going to do is just put down the basic background, and then I will see where that's going to take me. I've got this organza-y stuff, but I think that needs to go on top of something. I think if I just put it onto the cream, even if it's embellished, I think that'll be too see-through, but it could add a nice layer of shading, a different set of shady colour onto the background if I use my embellish on it. So I'll finish this off, get it all laid down, and then we'll pin it on. So I'm just going to pin these on. Now, because I'm going to use my embellishing machine, nothing really is an absolute, because it's going to scrunch the fabrics up, and I don't know quite how much it's going to scrunch these fabrics up. I could do a little test. I could take some of these little pieces of fabric and I could do a little test with my embellisher and see what happens, but I'm just going to pin these on loosely. I've got some spare strips so that if these get really scrunched up, then I can in fact add some more pieces in, and I'm ready for what might or might not happen. But in the meantime, I just thought if I pin them on, then at least I've got them roughly where I want them to go. The alternative way actually is not to pin them on at all. Sometimes I just stack these strips up, or I stack them up in a basket, or if they're just little pieces, sometimes I just pile them in a basket, or I just stack these strips up and then I'll just add them on as and when I feel I want to add them on into the mix. So that's now going to go that way. It's quite soft and floppy. Oh, actually I haven't pinned that one on. It's quite soft and floppy, but let's pin that on. It's going to be fine under the embellishing machine, as I will now show you. So I just thought I'd introduce you to my embellishing machine if you haven't seen one before. This is a needle felting machine, or a needle punching machine. Okay, it looks a bit like, I just pull back, it looks a little bit like a sewing machine, but it doesn't have any threads. So down here in this special little department, I've got 12 needles in here, but every machine is different. Some have 5, some have 7. This has got 12 really sharp, punchy needles that poke the fabrics through from the top to the bottom, and it basically felts things together or meshes things together. Okay, so up here mine's got a little knob. If I show you up here, it's got a little knob, and that little knob means I can adjust. I come back down again. That means I can adjust the height of the what you might call the presser foot area, so I can put that up or down depending on, you can see that. You just have to take my word for it. It goes up and down anyway. It gives me the ability, if I've got thicker fabrics, I can push that up a little bit. The presser foot must go down. You engage it just like you would on a sewing machine. But after that, that's where the similarities stop, really. So I shall just show you what I can do with it. Okay, so this is my machine ready to go. Got the presser foot down and the needles are ready to start. Now you have to obviously be very careful if you've got this pinned, same as with your sewing machine. Take the pins out when you get to them. And if you haven't seen one of these machines before, it is quite magical. And ever so slightly addictive. So you can see, if you haven't seen one before, I'll just lift that up a little bit. I'll show you, see if I can show you the back. Sorry about my hands in the way there, but if I can show you the back, can you see there's a line there where what has happened is the top fabric has been pushed through into the underneath fabric, so it's got little tiny bits of the threads from the top fabric poking through. And actually that's a really nice effect, but it's holding it, it's meshing the fabrics together and it holds them in place. Just get that back into place. Now I'm not too worried about how this is coming together, how the edges are going to be, because I can just add more fabrics on top. So I might do this one. It's going to be a bit noisy. Some fabrics are noisier than others. I just take it slowly and steadily. I don't rush. That's quite a noisy fabric. It's okay. It just depends on the weave, I think, of the fabric, how close it is. So something like that, when it makes that noise, I just go quite slowly so that I don't break a needle. Because breaking a needle is a bit of a challenge, because you have to change them. You have to take them out from here and change them. I'm going to do this edge now. Onto there. Again, I'm not rushing, there's no rush. Now we'll have a little look at that. It's got a few gaps there, but what I can do is I can just put another piece of fabric on top of there. That's not a problem. So we'll come over here, and I'm going to do the same over here. and you can see what it's doing to the fabric. If you don't want your fabrics to be scrunched up and the surface to be changed, then don't use an embellisher. Just do free machine embroidery onto your fabrics. But if, like me, you quite like a bit of texture and you think it's quite nice that things get changed and transformed, then an embellisher can be really wonderful, because it's quite exciting what it does, really. Let's see if I can get that to go over the edge there. So isn't that fantastic? It's pushing all these fabrics together and it's making me a new, it's almost like a new fabric out of the old by putting all the strips together. So I'm going to finish this off and then we'll see what's going to be next.